Good afternoon and welcome to IBA News this Tuesday, the 30th of August. I'm Elon Aslan-Levy, joining you live from Jerusalem. We open with the funeral of former Defense Minister and Labour Party leader Binyamin Fuad Ben Eliezer, who is being laid to rest at this hour at the Holon Cemetery. Ben Eliezer passed away Sunday night at the age of 80 from complications pertaining to dialysis. Thousands of relatives, friends and dignitaries from across the political spectrum, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, are attending the funeral. Former President Shimon Peres, opposition leader Isaac Herzog and the chairman of the Sayeret Shaked Association, Shlomi Groner, are among those lined up to eulogize the veteran politician. Ben Eliezer's son, Ophir, who resides in the United States, did not arrive for the funeral, fearing that he might be arrested and questioned about his late father's involvement in the bribery case he was convicted of last year. The court still needs to decide as to whether or not the money and property that were in Ben Eliezer's possession will be transferred to his relatives or awarded to the state. Overnight in the West Bank, the army demolished the home of Mohammed Abed al-Amera, one of the terrorists involved in the deadly shooting attack near Otniel on the 1st of July, murdering Rabbi Michael Mark and injuring his wife and 2 children. Border police and civil administration officials were involved in the operation in the village of Dura, southwest of Hebron. The move came after the Supreme Court rejected an appeal submitted on behalf of the terrorist family, calling to prevent the house from being razed. In the court ruling, Judge Tzvi Tzelbatal noted there is no reason to question the decision of the army command to destroy the house in question. Israel has reportedly returned the body of Taher Abu Razala, the 19-year-old Palestinian terrorist who stabbed 5 Israelis in Tel Aviv on the 8th of October last year. According to the Palestinian news agency Ma'an, Israel handed over the body to his family in the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Kafar Aqab. The family was instructed that no more than 25 people were permitted to attend his funeral and deposited 25,000 shekels as a guarantee of compliance. Razala was shot by soldiers after he attempted to snatch a female soldier's weapon near the Kiryat compound in Tel Aviv, stabbing her and lightly injuring 4 other Israelis with a screwdriver. Israeli settlement construction is again on the United Nations Security Council agenda after the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East blasted Israel for continuing to build in Israeli communities in the West Bank. IBA's Margot Dudkevich reports.
The UN Security Council plans to devote a special session on Israel's settlement policy. News of the upcoming meeting, scheduled for October 14th, emerged shortly after Nikolai Mladenov, the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East, blasted Israel, accusing it of expanding its footprint in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, and ignoring the Middle East Quartet, who 2 months ago ruled that a surge in Israel's settlement construction threatens all chances of reaching a 2-state solution. Briefing the UN Security Council yesterday, Mladenov, in a lengthy speech, also tasked the Palestinian Authority for what he described as the extrajudicial killing of a Palestinian detainee by Palestinian security forces in a Nablus prison earlier this month. He also mentioned the recent rocket attacks on the Israeli city of Sderot, saying such attacks do not serve the cause of peace. The majority of his comments, however, were devoted to Israel and its settlement policy, saying they have no legal validity and are an obstruction to achieving a comprehensive and just peace in the Middle East.
Let me be clear. No legal acrobatics can change the facts that all outposts, whether legalized under Israeli law or not, whether located on state land or absentee land or private Palestinian land, just like all settlements in Area C and East Jerusalem, remain illegal under international law.
Needless to say, the Palestinian ambassador to the UN took advantage of the envoy's comments, calling on the international community to hold Israel accountable for its actions.
We call upon the Security Council once again, and the Quartet, and the international community as a whole, that if your position is that settlement is illegal, and the major obstacle in the path of peace, then therefore it is your duty to tell us what are the practical steps that you are going to undertake in order to bring Israel into compliance with its obligation under international law and also under the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sharply criticized the UN envoy's remarks, accusing him of distorting history and international law, which will only serve to distance peace in the region. A statement issued by his office said, Jews have lived in Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria for thousands of years, and their presence there is not an obstacle to peace. The real obstacle to peace is the attempt to incessantly deny the relationship of Jews to their historical land. Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the UN, called the Mideast envoy's remarks a prize to the Palestinians that distance the chances of reaching a solution to the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians and illustrates the hypocrisy of the United Nations regarding Israel. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
The new school year finally gets underway on Thursday, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is promising a revolution in the country's educational curriculum. IBA's political reporter Kalev Ben-David is here in the studio with the details. Kalev.
Thanks, Alon. At today's cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Netanyahu told his ministers the new school curriculum will focus on two goals: achieving academic excellence that will enable every student to fulfill his or her potential, and reinforcing the Zionist identity of Israel's younger generation. The latter goal will be achieved first and foremost with a renewed emphasis on Bible studies, according to the Prime Minister. The Bible is the basis of why we are here, why we returned here, and why we remain here, Netanyahu said. Speaking at today's cabinet meeting, Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman expressed his objections to the decision by the Tel Aviv municipality to use the Shevach Mofet school to primarily serve the children of illegal foreign workers living in the city's southern neighborhoods. Lieberman, with support from Culture Minister Miri Regev, who said that foreign workers should be referred to as infiltrators and not refugees, called on Netanyahu to intervene in the issue, and the Prime Minister promised to address the matter at the next cabinet meeting. In other news, Lieberman is also sparking controversy over reported remarks concerning his opposition to any deal to recover the bodies of two soldiers killed in the 2014 Gaza operation. Channel 2 reported that Lieberman, while touring the South yesterday, said off-camera that he was against negotiating with Hamas to recover the remains of Staff Sergeant Oron Shaul and Lieutenant Hadar Golden, who fell fighting in Operation Protective Edge. Lieberman's office denied he specifically addressed that issue, but reiterated that in principle the defense minister is opposed to making any deals with terror organizations for the return of hostages or remains. The Shaul and Golden families issued statements criticizing Lieberman, with the Goldens saying that a defense minister that willingly gives up on the return of soldiers from the battlefield loses the moral authority to continue serving in his post. In the past, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that he does feel a deep commitment to recovering the bodies of the two soldiers. Alon.
Thank you, Kalev. In other developments, former Mossad chief Tamir Pardo warned today that ongoing division within Israeli society could lead to a civil war. Speaking from Daliat El Carmel at an event ahead of next month's march in memory of fallen Druze soldiers, Pardo said that even though such a scenario sounds extreme, there are certain elements in our society leading us in such a direction. The former Mossad chief stressed such internal divisions pose an existential threat that should concern us even more than external threats. Pardo said that although he cannot place the blame on any one specific group or leader, it is the responsibility of each and every citizen to ensure that this worst-case scenario not materialize. The Supreme Court yesterday ruled to reduce the sentences of 7 Palestinian teenage stone throwers while increasing the fines imposed on them. The 7 were convicted of throwing stones at 9 Israeli civilian vehicles and received sentences ranging from 1 to 3 years in jail. Those sentences are now slashed by an average of 6 months each. The ruling came in response to an appeal lodged by the Palestinians' lawyer against the sentencing of the Jerusalem District Court, which said the severity of the sentences was intended as a means of deterrence. In summing up yesterday's decision, Justice Uri Shoham wrote, "The level of punishment set by the District Court is an expression of a significant raising of the punishment bar when it comes to minors, which should be done gradually." 19 years after his mysterious disappearance, searches for missing IDF soldier Sergeant Guy Hever are once again being renewed. Over 100 police officers and volunteers will participate in the searches, set to take place over the next few weeks at a specific location in the north of the country. The 20-year-old soldier left his base near the Syrian border in August of 1997 carrying his rifle. No trace of him has been found since, and the case remains one of Israel's most confounding mysteries. Hever's mother believes her son was abducted and is being held in Syria. Over the years, tireless efforts have been made to locate him, but no reliable clues have been found. The army declared Hever a missing soldier, and a special unit was created to conduct periodic searches. The army is offering a reward for information on his fate. Was the biblical King David a real historic figure or a legend in folklore? A new exhibit at the Bible Lands Museum in Jerusalem has brought together artifacts unearthed at Khirbet Kayafa in the Elah Valley, which might help solve that mystery. IBA's Ari O'Sullivan went digging and brings us this report.
On this hilltop southwest of Jerusalem, King David may have sat with his sons once and recounted how he slew the Philistine giant Goliath down in the valley of Elah below when he was a young shepherd boy. For years there has been a fiery debate among archaeologists over whether King David truly existed or was he just a folk hero, a myth. For 7 years, archaeologist Yossi Garfinkel excavated here, and the pieces of the puzzle started to come together. This fortified city is the first glimpse of the making of a real Judean monarchy 3,000 years ago.
It's very clear that we have here a Judean city built in the time of King David, destroyed after 20 or 30 years, probably by the Philistines. And because of this destruction, everything has been frozen, and we have a biblical Pompeii.
Are you trying to prove the Bible?
No, but somehow it's matching with the biblical tradition. This is the first time in the archaeology of Israel that we have a fortified city in Judah from the time of King David. This was not found even in Jerusalem or Hebron.
And over here we have this beautiful city which dates from the time of King David. And one of the most unusual facts about this city is this gate, this monumental gate that starts here, goes all the way over here. And there's another gate just like this. And the word in Hebrew for gate is sha'ar. And it's called sha'araim in the Bible. And there's 2 gates. Maybe this is the biblical sha'araim. Among the finds was an ostracone with Proto-Hebrew, possibly the oldest Hebrew writing found to date. One of the most important artifacts is a small clay model of what could be the original first temple. These findings have all been gathered in Jerusalem at the Bible Lands Museum, which has recreated the ancient city in an exhibit called In the Valley of David and Goliath.
Every exhibition that we do is designed to really bring people to come and understand, to appreciate our history. I'm hoping that this exhibition will connect people to the land, bring people out here to the Elah Valley to come and see these incredible sites, but also to understand the importance of our history. The archaeology of the land of Israel is our history. It is the Bible. And if we take exhibitions like the one we're creating in the Valley of David and Goliath, and we bring together archaeological evidence with biblical quotes and some pretty snazzy design and wonderful pieces on display, we have an opportunity to really bring people back into connection with our history.
This 3,000-year-old pot bears the name Esh-Baal, the name of one of King Saul's sons, which the scriptures write was beheaded. For archaeologists, discovering a name inscribed in a pot in Canaanite script brings the Bible to life. This Esh-Baal was not the son of Saul, but likely a local landowner or a commander.
Here, what we try to do is to really create the city. So we recreated one of the gates, the city gates. And we try to give the idea of what was the house looking like, and what were all the activities in the house, like the kitchen, like the cult activity, the warehouse, and really to give the audience the possibility to really feel the city, that is like entering and visiting the city.
So if you can't get to the Elah Valley, the Bible Lands Museum brings it to you. Ari O'Sullivan for IBA News.
If that piques your interest, the exhibit at the Bible Lands Museum opens next week on Tuesday the 6th of September and will run till summer 2017. It has emerged that Norway is funding an organisation that distributes funds onwards to NGOs active in the anti-Israel boycott movement. According to the Norwegian Foreign Ministry, Oslo has allocated 5 million kroner, that's $600,000, to the Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law Secretariat, which is co-managed by Birzeit University's law faculty. NGO Monitor says its research finds that 13 of the 24 NGOs that receive funding from this secretariat support BDS and are are major players in the delegitimization campaign. These include Badil, which received $260,000 from the Secretariat and describes itself as having been fully committed to the BDS campaign from its inception. In response, the Norwegian embassy in Israel stressed to IBA that Norway does not tolerate efforts to delegitimize Israel and does not provide financial support to organizations whose main goal is to promote BDS. Asked to comment on the specific question of indirect funding for organizations that still support a boycott, a spokesperson said that Norway supports organizations for their work towards such shared goals as human rights and international law, even when it does not agree with all of their activities or expressions, but will not be commenting on individual organizations receiving funding. Sticking with the subject of a boycott, Brussels Airlines is reportedly reinstating chalva made by Israeli company Achva after it was accused of boycotting the sesame product manufactured in the Balkan industrial estate in the West Bank. In a statement, Brussels Airlines stressed that Achva remains one of our trusted suppliers without any distinction related to the origin of the product. Although the airline denies having discontinued the product, arguing that it had never ordered it in the first place, the Foreign Ministry told IBA that the airline is being a bit forgetful, insisting that the airline had indeed halted distribution and now reversed its decision. It credits the quick work of the Foreign Ministry staff in Jerusalem and embassies abroad for this reversal. When the boycott allegations surfaced last week, Tourism Minister Yariv Levin called for the Belgium-based airline to be wiped from the flight boards of Ben Gurion Airport. The museum at the Radegast train station in Łódź, from which Polish Jews were deported to their deaths in the Holocaust, will be expanded thanks to a $1.5 million grant from the European Union. The upgrade to the museum includes a new multimedia model of the Łódź or Litzmannstadt ghetto, which was the second largest in Europe after Warsaw and the last to be liquidated by the Nazis as late as August 1944. The museum opened a decade ago after the station, from which Jews were deported to Chełmno and Auschwitz, fell into disrepair. This comes after reports yesterday of a demonstration against the Łódź football team by fans of a rival team, in which hooligans performed Nazi salutes, burned effigies meant to represent Jews, and shouted, "Let them burn." The Łódź football team is associated with Jews by many Poles, owing to the city's large Jewish population, a third of the population prior to the Holocaust. With self-driving cars and automatic vacuum cleaners a reality, the robotics revolution helping low-skill tasks is spreading to pharmaceuticals, with the launching of the first robotic pharmacy in Israel. A Jerusalem-based pharmacy belonging to the Me'uchedet Health Fund has been equipped with a sophisticated robot that dispenses medication to patients, significantly cutting down the waiting time in queues. The robot liberates pharmacists to concentrate on prescriptions and giving the proper instructions to patients regarding their dosages. The pharmacist submits prescriptions into the computerized system, which then activates the robot. Staff and patients alike have welcomed the efficient no hands, no mistakes machine, hailing it as a crucial development and a great success. The system is expected to be installed in additional pharmacies across the country in the near future. The entertainment world is mourning the loss of Emmy Award-winning actor Gene Wilder, who died yesterday from complications of Alzheimer's disease at the age of 83. Wilder was born Jerry Silberman in Milwaukee in 1933 to a Russian Jewish father, later describing himself as a Jewish Buddhist atheist. Wilder was best known and loved for his roles in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, The Producers, Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles. According to his nephew, Wilder chose to keep his illness secret, lest children who knew him as Willy Wonka equate the eccentric chocolatier with the disease from which he suffered for the last 3 years. Longtime collaborator Mel Brooks mourned Wilder as one of the truly great talents of our time. May his ever-comic memory be a blessing. In weather, tomorrow should be partly cloudy with a slight drop in temperatures, which will remain stable on Thursday. And that's all for today. We'll be back again tomorrow.